The What to Next podcast helps you build a TBR of future favorite books. In each episode, Lori and Maine interviews authors and book influencers to recommend books they loved for you to pick up today. If you're an avid reader, always looking for your next great read, then the show. Hi, RC. Welcome to What to Next podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
So happy to have you here. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I write contemporary romance, and I am married to my very own happily ever after. I'm grateful for that. I'm my husband, and I have a young daughter who is about to turn 10, and we live in part of Central America. So
I love this. I love this. So I think in your interview questions, you mentioned you're a speed reader. So how did you get started? And what does it look like for you?
How you mean how I got started speed reading?
Yeah, how do you get started? Okay. How does it look like?
Funny enough, we were, and this is gonna show my age so much, but when Apple computers first were placed in schools,
yeah,
and they were, the old time computers that were like 5 million tons, we were a guinea pig group, and I think it was in 6th grade for this Apple computer program for reading. And so how it started is we sat in front and they would flash words slowly. Like it would be like 1 or 2 words, depending on the length. And they would flash them on the screen, do, and then speed up as you progressed, and you would answer questions, comprehension questions at the end. And I have no idea. It was just one of those things that it clicked, and I was like, good at it. I could just, and I mean, we're talking like as you progressed, it would go, I mean, like light speed almost. And I was like, oh, wow. And from that point on, and they never did the pilot or the guinea pig program, whatever you want to call it. They never did it past us. So we were like the experimental group. But from that point on, I realized, I was like, oh my gosh, this is honestly like kind of a gift, but also a curse, because you know how you get those books that you really want to savor. Yeah. And it's like, I'm so used to it nowadays that it's like, oh, why did I not read slower? But it's just ingrained in me now at this point. But yeah, so I mean, and my husband always jokes, he's like, how many paperbacks are you bringing to the beach today? And he's like 5 or 6, but I mean, and it's not like showing off legit, but it's just, I read that fast. So yes, and back in 6th grade, who knew? It's wild.
Yeah.
I know. So, but it helped in college, that's for sure. Oh my gosh. So
I can imagine in college where there's all these books and all these like reading and all the specific things you're writing and stuff like that, so
definitely.
And in terms of your reading, did you end up reading like growing up, like reading YA or anything like at that time, like what it was considered YA, or were you like waited later in life to start reading,
No, I ended up at my local library, and when you're off normally for summers out of school, and my dad would always take me to the library, and I was just like, I read through so many books, and I was looking for something more. And he was like, hey, why don't you try this rack? He's like, you're an advanced reader, and like move away from the kiddie kind of section, if you will. And that was when I found like the young adult romance books. And I was just like, that was it. That was it for me. I was done for. I was like, this is my thing. This is my jam. And so yeah, that's pretty much how it started, and I've always read it from that point on. I've always been a passionate reader. So
I love this. All right, so let's talk about your latest release, which is
it's coming out May 23rd. It's an armored heart, and it is about a Italian restaurant owner, and her building is basically about to be just demolished in favor of the company building high-rise condos in its way. And so she decides, Ella Marchetti, she's like, her love language is feeding people, right? She's hardcore Italian, and she goes with a inflated bag of angel hair pasta, meatballs, and a cannoli, because she's going to the CEO of this land development company, and she's going to convince him of this restaurant building and to build high-rise condos elsewhere. And Their meet, I mean, they are just complete opposites. He's like allergic to emotion and, he's completely stoic. And she's like a lover of affection, hugs and just happiness galore. And so she tries to feed him, almost force feed him like amoeba. Just a taste. You'll be convinced that we're worth saving. And inadvertently, he reaches for to stop her, and his cufflink catches on her hair, entangles, and in the process of him trying to untangle it, they get caught in this pseudo compromising position. And yes, the ball just rolls from there, and they, have to come up with this agreement that in order to save her building, she will agree to be a straight girlfriend for 4 months. And so, with two people who like completely opposite, it's just, and she loves to needle him because she's like, you have all your armor and you're like creaky and like, oh, I am allergic to emotions, must get the oil and like lubricate my joints. And so she just gives her so much crap, and it's super fun.
I love this, and I love the fact that it takes like a trope that you normally will see in historical romance, this compromising position, and like, oh, we must get together into contemporary times. Like it's just kind of like a fresh new take of a trope that you wouldn't think like you normally see in historical romance,
Right.
Like
exactly.
where, and be like, actually, in contemporary times, it still works.
Right. Exactly. So yes, it's not heavy on the angst. It's just more, more fun. And yeah, I really enjoyed writing it. It's like, yeah, I haven't written anything quite like it before. So I'm really excited about it.
Oh, love it. So we're going to talk about some of your backlist titles. So what to read after An Armor Hard? Like what other books in your backlist you should recommend or read us to pick up?
This is the hard part because it depends on the mood, because I have so many, I have a whole series, well, I should say series, but they're all standalone. Romantic suspense with like really kick-ass heroines. So if you're feeling like you need to be empowered, like, women are powerful and, reminder that you're awesome. Hell Hath No Fury is probably the place to start for that, because she's like, uh, basically watches her husband, father, and daughter get murdered before her eyes and almost loses her own life. And it's turns out like the whole town's just corrupt, and they try to pin it on her that she did it. And she escapes and comes back, years later, ready to take revenge on everybody who played a role in, in the murder of her family. And so she's just amazing. And however, if you want super angst, choose me. Choose me is super angsty. So it's best friends, and where you start in the beginning, he's watching his best friend walk down the aisle to get married to someone else. And he's like, I wish I would have had the nerve to just ask her. Instead, choose me. And so that's how it like starts out. And then you go back in time to their whole story. And that was an amazingly fun book to write too. Very angsty though. Holy cow. So yeah, I shed some tears like while writing certain parts. But I was like, oh,
Yeah.
definitely. So it just depends on like what kind of flavor you're into at the moment.
Yeah.
For my backlist.
I love this. I love these recommendations. I love that you gave us a little taster for like if you're looking for angst, here you go. If you're looking for romantic suspense, here you go. Like you just give it a try. Like like you have a little bit of everything for someone who depends on the mood, what they are.
Exactly. Because then I also have like dabbled in romantic suspense with a little bit of paranormal twist, and that was Beyond My Darkness, and that's where she has the power to briefly revive the dead, and she works in a morgue, and she's like, she can revive them, and she comes across these two bodies that is like, that says that they died of natural causes. She's like, there's no way, and she has like not used her gift, or what she calls her curse, in years, 12 years, and she left that whole life behind, and she's like, I have to do this, and she uses her power, her ability to revive the dead, and ask them, how did you die? Who killed you? And they send her with their answers. They send her basically tumbling into this whole different world, into this like gang leader. And she is like, I've got to warn you. And it's just, how am I supposed to warn this like really, really intimidating criminal, like that he could be in danger. And avoid telling him how I know because I revived two dead people briefly. Like, who's gonna believe that? So, and she's a fun character because she's just real and she's like, yeah, this is not gonna go well, but I feel the compelled to do this. And she's just like, she has words on it, which is awesome. Like, it's just totally down to earth. But that was and also like a super fun book to write and having an anti-hero. He is totally a legit anti-hero. So if somebody's down for that, then that is the book.
There we go. Awesome. So now let's talk some book recommendations. What kind of books do you tend to read?
Ah, that I read a little bit of everything, quite honestly. I read, you know, honestly, military biographies. I love military biographies. And then just nonfiction as well, like The Gift of Fear by that is one of my favorite. Uh, it, I don't know. Have you ever read it? The Gift of
Yeah.
Fear. Okay, okay. It is not for everybody, but it basically just compiling proof of how we should use and heed our instincts to avoid like major tragedies from happening. And he takes some people who he's talked to who have been victims of certain assault women in particular who have been victims of assault and so forth, and like how there were signs. And sometimes we are like, no, you know what, we're being too paranoid. And we like tell ourselves that, no, nobody's going to do that. Like, they seem like a nice person. They seem normal. They look normal. And it's like you're ignoring that voice in the back of your head. And he talks about that. He interviews a lot of like, psychologists and psychiatrists and everything like that in that realm. So it's a real good roundabout view, kind of being a reinforcement of like, listen to your gut, don't go against it. Like, even if it comes off as rude, better safe than sorry kind of thing. And but yes, but the stories that he shares, it people who agree to share their stories, oh my gosh, it's like, yeah, it's really compelling. But I mean, I read romance and as well. And let's see here, I had unfortunately I had eye surgery in January, so I have been not able to read actual books, so I've done
Yeah.
audiobooks. But I love Kylie Scott's audiobooks, of course. So stellar. They're like some of my favorites. I've re-listened to them countless times. Um, and I think one of my favorites was is it Repeat? I think Repeat.
I think
Oh,
so.
oh my goodness. I love that. I actually listened to it for it was one of those specials when it first came out, it was audiobook first. And then yeah. And I was like, oh, this is fantastic. So into it. So yes, I love her audiobook.
I love it.
Mhm.
And do you have any books to recommend our listeners to pick up? Any other books or to?
Um, let's see here. Any other book recommendations? I mean, it's not a new release, but like War by Laura Thalassa. I
Yep.
think that's how I'm saying her name. I hope I'm not mispronouncing it. Yes, yes. And War, and I mean the Horseman of the series is
Yeah.
fantastic. But that one, I loved that book. Like, absolutely loved it. And I'm always like, I think I've been to so many like book signings when we've been like, at a table in the restaurant or bar or whatever. And I'm like, you have to read this. And like totally like telling people, I'm like, oh my gosh, yes. And around doing book recommendations with a bunch of people, like I'm like, I will never lead you wrong when it comes to good books, good food, and like good music. Like legit, never. I promise.
I love this. And yeah, I'm adding the war book for sure into my TBR.
It's so good, so good. And that's not normally my jam, like
Yeah.
going into that kind of, yeah. And she's such, I mean, it's like her craft of writing is so perfect. I'm like, she's right then. She's amazing.
I love this. RC, tell us where we can find you online.
Oh gosh. Okay. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram. Instagram, it's probably the best place to find me. Instagram's better. And I'm on TikTok, but not really. I'm just there like as a placeholder. I'm terrible at TikTok. Yeah. it's a scary place for me. So Facebook, Instagram, on my website.
Yeah.
I think that's it. I'm sorry.
No, that's perfect.
To think.
Keep it simple. Thank you, RC, for being on the show.
Oh my gosh, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
If you enjoyed this podcast, feel free to share with friends, subscribe, rate, and review the show. This is the easiest way to support the podcast. For a list of books mentioned and other book recommendations, please visit whattoreadnextblog.com. Thank you so much for listening and happy reading.